I'm assuming you're watching this video because either you own a Mark 7 Golf GTI or you want to buy a Mark 7 Golf GTI and you want just one video that's going to tell you everything that you need to know on how to modify your car. Well, you have come to the right place. In this video, we're going to cover wheels, tyres, exhaust, suspension, intakes, tunes, and all the other mad mods that are specific to the Mark 7 Golf platform. Plus, we're going to hear from some experts on how you can get the most out of your Golfswagen. This is how to modify your Mark 7 Golf GTI, proudly brought to you by us, Mighty Car Mods. The Mark 7 Golf platform was made between 2012 and 2021, and the GTI version of this car has become one of the most popular cars in history to modify. Why? Because they're good. How good? Really good. I've owned over 100 cars over the years, and lots of them have been Golfs. I've had a Mark 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an 8, and for some reason, I keep coming back to the VAG platform. But what is the best of all of them? It's a 7.5 GTI, damn it. If you don't believe me, check the comments. We made one of the fastest Mark 7 Golf Rs in Australia in street trim. It did the quarter mile in 11.2 seconds and 0 to 100 in 2.8. But the Golf GTI is the superior vehicle. They're more affordable, they're lighter, they're arguably more fun, they meet the definition of a hot hatch being front wheel drive, and with just a flash tune, it's just as fast as a Golf R anyway. How do we know? Because we hired a racetrack, got a professional race car driver in a Mark 8 Golf R and a Mark 7.5 GTI with a flash tune. When they've got the same tyres, their lap times are the same. Let's be honest, your average car buyer doesn't know the difference between front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive anyway. And to prove the point, I'm going to call my mum, who's not an average person, but she probably has about an average knowledge about cars. So let's see what she has to say. What kind of car would you prefer out of a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive car?
Front-wheel drive cars are absolute rubbish. That's why I drive a Subaru.
If you've already got a Golf GTI, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you don't have one yet and you're in the market, which one do you buy? You head straight on down to your corner store. You get a plastic bag full of 1-cent lollies and you grab yourself a performance pack. 7.5, you can get them in 3-door and 5-door, but the 3-door looks weird. They got the proportions wrong. 5-door's better and more practical. The Performance Pack used to be a performance upgrade that you could pay for from the factory as an option, but from 2019 onwards in Australia anyway, it became the standard trim. So what do you get? Power's up from 169 kilowatts to 180 kilowatts, and you get a limited slip differential. You get big ventilated brakes off the Golf R and a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. The interior of the Mark 7.5 is absolutely incredible. It's this nice dark space. There's blacks and greys everywhere. There's real buttons. The Dyne Audio sound system is one of the best sound systems I've ever heard in any car ever. And these tartan seats, they're just the best. So you've got your car. Now let's talk about mods. Wheels and tyres are pretty much the first thing that anyone wants to change when they're modifying their car. It can drastically alter the way that your car looks, plus the kind of tyre that you choose can help with your acceleration, cornering, and braking. There are lots of wheel options available from Japan and from Europe, and there's even ones available from China. But when someone says, check out my JDM wheels, they're probably from Japan. Look at my wheels made in Germany, they're probably made in Germany. When someone just says, check out my wheels, they're probably from China. If you've got a Mark 7.5 Golf GTI, this is everything you need to know about wheels and tyres. The stud pattern is 5x1112. The centre bore is 57.1 millimetres. The thread pitch is 1.5 millimetres, and make sure you use a ball mount wheel bolt, not a cone mount, because they're two totally different things. Make sure you're using something that's compatible with your wheels. That is all the nerdy information that you need. Take a screenshot of it right now. One of the most common aftermarket wheel fitment options for the Mark 7 Golf is an 18 by 8.5 with a plus 45 offset. That gives you a nice little bit of flushness over here, but if you don't want to spend lots of money on an aftermarket wheel, you can also use a wheel that is an upgrade from a different line of car from the same manufacturer. So this here is an 18 by 8. This is a Pretoria wheel. This here, it doesn't have as an aggressive fitment, which might mean that you need some spacers. In Volkswagen land, they call it a flush fitment kit. It's not a flush fitment kit, it's just spacers, but more on that later. This here runs a 225 by 40 tyre. You can also go 19s if you want, but depending on the quality of the roads where you are, a 19 may mean that you sacrifice some comfort. When it comes to your tyres, what do you use? This here is a Pilot Sport 5, one of the best all-round tyres that you can get. But if you are spending a bit more time at the track, you can also look at getting a Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2. You're going to get a little bit more performance in the dry, but you're going to lose a little bit of performance in the wet. If you do have really wide wheels and tyres and your car is lowered, you might need to do what Volkswagen enthusiasts call the fender bolt removal mod. There's a little bolt just under here that's holding the fender to the guard here, and if you go really low, that can cause some scrubbing. So all you need to do is remove it, but it's not just remove it, it's the fender bolt removal mod. Just like the spacers are not spacers, they're flush wheel mount kits. Is this a non-vertical mod because I'm sitting down? No, I'm just sitting down. But if your car's low and your wheels and tyres are wide, you might need to remove that so your car doesn't rub. These are some of the things you have to deal with when you become part of the Volkswagen community. If you're straight out of low cash, but you do want to give your car a bit more of an aggressive stance with its wheels, then the cheapest way of doing it is using a flush mount kit, which is basically getting the factory wheels that are on your car and spacing them out a little bit more so that they fill the guards a little bit better. Now, you can buy spacers from eBay for like 20 or 30 bucks, but I would recommend, if you are going to do this, to actually get some flush mounting kits from a reputable brand, but be prepared to pay like $500 or $600 for them. Now on the front, they're going to be 15 mil wide usually, and on the back, they're going to be 20 mil wide. It's up to you whether you want to use them or not. They might be illegal in your country, so make sure you do your own research. Heaps of information on Facebook groups, heaps of information on forums, so check that out. That should be your wheels and tyres sorted. Now let's move on to exhausts. When it comes to the exhaust system for your Mark 7 Golf GTI, you got four main options. Number one, a resonator delete. Number two, a catback exhaust. Number three, a dump pipe. And number four, a full turbo back exhaust, and I'm going to explain each of them to you in detail. The absolute cheapest exhaust modification that you can do is a resonator delete. So that is getting the factory system that already exists on your car, taking it to an exhaust shop and getting someone to chop out the center resonator and replacing it with a piece of straight pipe. But don't just take my word for it. Let's hear from someone who does this for a living.
Res delete's 10-minute job. I've done it thousands of times. If you delete the center resonator, your Golf's going to sound good. If you delete your rear muffler, it's going to sound like shit and your neighbours are going to hate you.
Probably the most common exhaust modification that you can do yourself at home is a catback exhaust. So that is something that goes from the factory catalytic converter all the way back. You'll get a little bit more volume and you'll also get some mad exhaust tips, and you don't need a flash tune to make it work. For those looking for performance, the other option is keeping the factory system but replacing the dump pipe. This does need a tune, it is going to make you more power, and in some states now it's illegal to do the dump pipe modification, therefore a stage 2 may not be available anymore, which brings us on to the last option, which would be a turbo back system. It is definitely the best way if you want the most amount of power, but it's also going to cost you the most amount of money. It's a complete aftermarket system that goes from the turbo all the way out the back of the car, but you'll definitely need a tune to get the most of it. Your exhaust is done, let's move on to the intake. Since the dawn of time, one of the most important modifications that anyone can do to their car is giving it a hectic intake sound. It's why people have been doing it for years. 500 years ago, people were doing this. Why were they doing it? Because they can make their cars sound mad. Like, how much power, though, are you actually going to make by replacing your intake? Well, we have done extensive testing over the years. We've done turbo cars, we've done non-turbo cars, we've done pod filters, we've done different intake systems, and the answer is, well, it's a little bit complicated. It turns out with modern cars, the intakes are actually pretty good, but there are still gains to be made, particularly if you tune for it. And what's not in dispute is how mad you can make your car sound. The simplest and cheapest intake mod that you can do is a performance drop-in filter. It's a filter that replaces the OEM filter and is designed to give you performance. How much power will you actually make? Absolutely nothing. We've done some testing, and in our tests we made absolutely nothing. The box may tell you otherwise, but what I will say is a drop-in performance filter that's new is probably going to give you more performance than an old, out-of-date OEM filter. Moving on from there, you get a proper open pod filter with a full intake system that's actually designed for performance for your car, and with a tune, these can actually make some power. But on this platform, while you're at it, you should also look at your turbo inlet pipe. There's some huge gains that can be found there, and if you're playing around down that part of the engine, that's probably a good time also, particularly if you're running some boost, to look at upgrading your DV valve. When it comes to choosing your intake, all of the major tuning houses have different intake options. Some of them are using silicon, some of them are made out of carbon fiber, and the prices can range from a couple of $100s through to thousands of dollars. There's heaps of videos out there and heaps of information, so do a bit of research and see what you can find that actually fits your budget. But one thing that is an important consideration is that in some countries and some states, it's illegal to have an open air filter like this, but people do love the sound of it. So there is an option to get something like this that's open, but then you can also fully enclose it like this, which means you've got a street option and a track option. All right, people, that's your intake. Now let's move on to suspension. The MQB platform is renowned for its agility and its handling, but that doesn't stop people wanting to have a play around with it, particularly when it comes to ride height. Now, normally what people want to do is just drop a little bit off, and the standard kind of lowered spring that you'd get would lower around 25 to 35 mils all the way around, and if people want to do more than that, then they would use a coilover. One consideration though is that if the roads where you are rubbish and your car has the adaptive suspension, you're going to want to go with a lowered spring, again, because that means you get to keep the adaptability of your suspension. So the other thing that people also want to do though when they're out at the track is they want to try and fix some of the understeer, and what can greatly improve the performance of your car on the track and when driving hard is a rear sway bar. But what does it do and how do you install it? Good question.
So here is a Whiteline rear sway bar for the Golf. Specifically, this is the 22mm version, 2-point adjustable as you can see. Biggest bang for buck handling upgrade that you can install at home, in my opinion. It's going to improve the roll stiffness in the rear of the vehicle, giving you more turn-in, more cornering grip, and improving your lap times. So it's going to feel better on the track, but it's also going to feel much better to drive on the street.
There's also a trend these days of people just enjoying their car's ride exactly as it came from the factory. In the past, obviously, people used to lower them massively, but now people have a much more utilitarian view of their car and they want to be able to use it every single day, which means stock ride height. And if you go to different car groups and enthusiast groups, you'll see now there's stock height gang where people go around posting photos of their stock height car. Certainly with my Mark 8 Golf R, I originally had lowered springs in it and I eventually put the stock springs back in because I just wanted to be able to drive around all of the crummy roads that are around Sydney. So stock height is definitely a thing. That is your suspension sorted, people. Now let's move on to the important one. We're talking about flashes, yes, tunes. Do you want to put your car's servicing, longevity and warranty
in the bin?
Well, you've come to the right place, people, because this is what your manufacturer would have you believe if you run a flash tune on your Golf GTI. But what is a flash tune?
A flash tune is essentially pulling the memory out of the factory engine management system, then jumbling it all up, modifying it, optimizing your boost tables, your ignition tables, your fueling tables, your torque tables, then putting that memory back into the engine management system, writing it in with a special tool, with a special version of software, start the car up. If it's a stage 1, essentially the car will have no modifications at all, but you can gain up to 20, 30, 40% more torque, resulting in more power.
There's a couple of options of how you can install a flash tune onto your car's ECU. You can go down to one of the distributors of one of the major tuning houses in your country, go to the workshop and they'll actually plug your car in, make sure it's got constant battery power, and then load in your stage 1, 2, 3 or 99 tune, depending on what other mods are on your car. Alternatively, you can get something like this, an access port which you can buy online, and plugged into your OBD2 port, you can actually download the programs down into your car's ECU yourself. You can also choose crackle tunes, you can have valet modes, there's all sorts of different features that it can unlock depending on which brand you're using and what it does, but a stage 1 tune is going to be the best bang for buck performance you can do with your Golf GTI. But what's going to complement your tune perfectly is also a TCU tune. A transmission control unit tune or a TCU tune or a DSG tune is basically software that is affecting how your gearbox responds and reacts based on the input from your right foot. It is the perfect complement once you're going stage 1 and above, and I reckon it's a must for your GTI. Whether your car's stock or whether it's modified, changing the oil is the #1 thing that you can do to maintain the integrity and longevity of your engine. In the case of the Mark 7 Golf GTI, Its oil is specified as Castrol. It even says it on the cap here. We use 5W30 LL. This here is the only oil that we would put in this car. If you're doing your own oil changes, use this. If your car's actually being worked on by a shop, buy the oil yourself, take it down there and go, please service it with this. This is the only oil that we run in all of our cars, Volkswagen and otherwise. It is made for performance. It's what Castrol Edge is, and it's the only thing you should be sticking in your Mark 7 GTI. If you've followed all the steps in this video, then right now you should have a mad fast car that sounds good, it looks good, plus has all the practicality and safety and comfort that your Golfswagen is known for. But you've got your main chili dish and you want a couple of little spicy sides. Here are a few other common modifications that people do. Weather shields are a really common modification, plus they're practical as well. You can crack your windows when it's raining to get some air in without water getting into your car. Golf R taillights are also a really popular modification. You can buy OEM, but they're really expensive, or you can get some aftermarket replicas, and they massively update and upgrade the look of the rear end of your GTI. Black badges are a really common modification, as is body kits and lip kits. There are so many different options out there, so do some research yourself and see what styles you like. But what do you do from here if you want to squeeze your banana even harder? Well, the next logical step is a turbo upgrade. The turbo from the Golf R, the IS38, is a direct fit to the Golf GTI, which can give you major gains. And if you want even more than that, you can look at something like the Revo Hybrid Turbo, which is capable of up to 500 horsepower. But then dive down the rabbit hole you go, because you've got to need a better fueling system, cooling system, front mount intercooler, coils, sparks, plus you're going to want to also upgrade your brakes because you're going to be going so quick, and that is an expensive exercise for your daily. But there it is. Hopefully this video has given you a little spicy taste of what is possible for your mad Mark 7.5 Golf GTI. As far as we're concerned, it's one of the best daily drivable performance cars that you can buy, and we hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any more comments that you think could help other owners of this car, please dump them down below, and it can be a compendium of mad Vagwagon information, a compendium of wisdom of all of the Volkswagen owners out there. We hope you enjoyed this video. There are going to be more in the series of other popular cars. I'm Moog from Mighty Car Mods. See you next time for another episode of How to Modify Your Car.